Hello, welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Andrew Musgrove here, and it's a pleasure to say I'm joined by Newcastle United legend Warren Barton, all the way from the United States. You can see the sun shining in the back there. We've got a weather warning for snow. Warren told me he has a weather warning for it being too hot. So, yeah, how are you doing, Warren, in these strange times?
Yeah, it's been difficult. Obviously, the sunshine makes it a lot easier for myself and the family to get through it. But it's been tough times. Obviously, the COVID situation is not easing up, the same as in the UK. And then you put on the top of what's happening with Newcastle at the moment, it doesn't put you in a good mood. But you have to be positive. And as I said, I moved here 12 years ago, and it's been a great opportunity for me and my family. But obviously, I keep a big eye on what's happening with Newcastle and obviously Newcastle United.
So let's just sum up then your feelings of what you saw last night. I think we messaged at half time, and I joked to you that you're going to have to come up with some jokes yourself to make everyone a bit happier. And then it got a lot worse because obviously Newcastle lost. I mean, how did you feel watching that last night?
It felt like a joke because when you put a team that haven't won a game all season, and Sheffield United have got a good coach with Chris and a decent group of players that are trying to get out of a hole, and you want them to do well. You feel for them, but when a team like Newcastle United go there and go defensive against a team, as I said, that haven't won a game, they look nervous, they look fragile, and we've let them grow into a game. We've let them dominate the game. We've let them create chances. And it was a bit of disbelief because I couldn't believe there was your chance really to emulate and put a stamp down and say, no, we are going to go forward. We've been in a poor run of form. We've come against a team that's bottom of the league. Again, I echo myself. And we still allow another team to dominate the ball, dominate possession and dominate chances against us. I feel for the players. I do. I think there's a sense in the players that they want to go and express themselves, but obviously the coach and this coaching staff, they lead the way and they have their say about how the tactics are going to be put out there. But it was purely disbelief. It was boredom because of the style of football. And as I said, it's going to be a long 45 minutes on the social media. And this is not someone trying to be controversial or proving a point. This is someone that cares, that feels for the club, that feels for the people that work in the stadium, that feels for the city, that obviously played for the club and was captain for the club as well. So I feel what's going on and I want better and I expect better. I want to, Alan Shearer said it well, is it too much to ask to be ambitious? Is it too much to ask to try and win a game? And my answer would be no. We understand Liverpool, Man City, that's the benchmark. But we can compete, we can challenge, we can put a group of players forward that's going to be determined to win a game rather than sit back and hope that they're not going to lose a game. And unfortunately, we lost it, and you said it as well on social media. You could sense it was coming. You could see it a million miles away. And that's scary for me. That's scary that people could see that Sheffield United was going to beat Newcastle United. And that's something that we've got to change drastically because if not, we're going to get pulled into a relegation battle. And I really, to be honest with you, I wouldn't fancy our chances at the moment.
Did that disbelief that you mentioned start with that team sheet when you saw it was 5 at the back against a team that can't score goals, against a team that hasn't kept a clean sheet all season, against a team, as you say, hadn't won a game in the Premier League all season, and yet Newcastle set up 5 at the back, 3 midfielders who aren't all that mobile, they're not all that creative. The team sheet it was a scratch of the head of the moment for a lot of people.
I think not just that team sheet, but I think it's been coming. As I said, I don't go into a game now being optimistic. I really don't, and let's be honest. I know there was glimpses against Liverpool, and it's a hard-fought point. I mean, playing against Liverpool, you are going to raise yourself. They do go forward. They do leave a little bit of space in behind. They do want to go on the front foot. So it's an end-to-end game. We used to have great games against Liverpool. I know we lost 4-3 twice and everything else, but we would go and attack them. At the moment, we don't look like it. So I wasn't surprised in the sense of what's been going on in recent weeks and months. I'm not just talking about the last 5 or 6 games. I think even when it was going well, it wasn't particularly enjoyable. But when you win in it covers a lot of holes. It covers a lot of cracks. But now the light has come out and we've been knocked out of 2 cup competitions. Okay, against Arsenal, who have reached some form. But Brentford, we went down there again to let them dictate. And you've seen them play. You see how they want to play. So why don't you tactically nullify what they're doing and exploit their weaknesses, which we didn't. They're poor, Brentford, when you attack them. And that's been shown throughout the campaign. You know, they go against them. Look what Spurs did. They went against them and got 2 early goals. The game's over. We go down there and allow them to dictate. We're the Premier League. You know, we're you know, that's what is so frustrating. If we're going to get beat, let's get beat having a go, not just throwing the towel in before it started. And as I said, I'm not saying it was just this game. This has been coming. This has been coming for a number of weeks and months. And I think if we're all realistic, we can even go back towards the end of last season and say, yeah, we was winning games, but was we getting off our seat to really cheer it on? And I think I think we've got some talented players. I think we really have. I think we've got players that want to express themselves, that want to go forward. But as you said, if you're sat there with 5 and 3 holding midfield players and you're leaving Wilson up there, and he needs only 1 or 2 chances. He's not an Alan Shearer. I get that. But he's a striker that you give him 2 or 3 good chances in the game, he's going to put one of them away. And he's starved at the moment with having the ball. You know, and Joe Linton gets a lot of criticism. He works hard. But when he was at Hoffenheim, he never played as a number 9. He was always in and around. And when he's played next to someone, I think, in my opinion, he's done reasonably well. And I said, it's just very disheartening and very frustrating. I think you can tell. And, you know, it's not something that's just happened overnight. It's been slowly draining away. And I mentioned it as well. You know, it's like this bloody pandemic. It just keeps draining you. You know, you think you're taking a step forward and then you go back again, and you have to try and keep motivating yourself. So, but, you know, we've got the players to do it. We just need, as I said, we need someone to grab this club by the scruff of the neck, whoever it is, the coach, whoever it is, and it should be a coach like Steven Gerrard's done, and get it back up there. Get it up there challenging with, I'm not saying with Man City or Liverpool, but a Wolves, an Everton, a Leicester. You know, come on, don't tell me we can't do what West Ham's doing. Please. I mean, we've got enough quality there to do that. And that's where it is so frustrating for everybody.
You mentioned Steven Gerrard there. Do you think he would be able to come in and turn this around? Because obviously you've got the takeover hanging over Newcastle United, and we all want an answer one way or the other. Do you think he could come in that situation if Steve Bruce did leave and manage to take Newcastle up the table?
I'll go to the situation when Sir Bobby Robson took over from Ruud Gullit. Bobby turned up on the Thursday afternoon. He come in and he was with the fans. There was straight away a lift in the area. He come into training on Friday. He just went round and shook all our hands and said, you know, how you doing and good luck. And he said one thing to Alan Shearer. He said, why do you keep coming towards the ball? Why do you keep coming? And Alan, being Alan, said, well, the other fella told me to come and show. And Bobby went, just go forward. I want you to face the goal. We played Sheffield Wednesday the next day and beat them 8-0. And he scored 5 goals. And it wasn't a big tactical turnaround. It was just a momentum change and a mindset. I want Wilson facing their goal. I don't want him 50 yards away in my own half, coming to get the ball and link up them. I want him facing their goal. I want him scoring goals. You know, we're trying to hide a little bit in, you know, personnel and tactics and system. Bobby made the game easy. Kevin Keegan made the game easy. We knew exactly what to do. We played on the front foot. We had good players. We played a move and we created chances. And, you know, the higher up, and I know the game's changed. I totally get that. And that's why I said you've got to be a bit more tactically aware. But the fundamentals of playing for Newcastle United should be that you go out and entertain and win a game. It shouldn't be that you try and draw a game out. And unfortunately, that's what we're getting. And, you know, would it be Stephen? Would it be someone else that would come in? I think there would be, because I think everybody's so low at the moment. And Steve being a Geordie, that's just another thing that's a little bit confusing with me. He's a Geordie and he understands what he should do. He understands what the club and the fans want. And he doesn't look like he's enjoying it. Now, Sir Bobby and Kevin, when they come in, even when we got beat, and it wasn't that often, to be honest with you, but when we did get beat, they wasn't doom and gloom. It was like, come on, let's roll our sleeves up and go again. Look where we're working. Look what we're playing for. Look who we're playing for. And they're not. That's not there. When Steve wins a game, it's like, you know, it's like, come on, man, enjoy it. You know, when we win a game and we go over to the fans on their away day, wherever it was, Old Trafford or Anfield, and they're jumping around, we just made their week. He looks like you're going to the dentist. It's a problem. He should really enjoy it. As I said, you know, what a captain, what a leader he was. But enjoy being in charge of a club where he was born and bred and told who he was going to support. Not sit there and just let it happen. You know, that's just my perception of what's going on at the moment. I might be totally wrong, but that's what I'm looking at and seeing. I'm not seeing someone that's really enjoying it and understands what that club is all about and what you should be doing for the club.
You mentioned there that this result last night against Sheffield United had been coming. The performances had been poor, but Newcastle were picking up points here and there, enough to have this 8-point cushion they've got on the relegation zone. Does it worry you now that in the last few weeks the results have started to match the performances, i.e., Newcastle haven't got anything in the last 7 Premier League games, or they haven't won in the last 7 Premier League games, and they deserve to on the basis of how they've performed, whereas before they were picking up points even if they didn't deserve them?
Don't you think that's sad? That's what we're talking about now, is that we're 8 points away from the relegation zone. That's, for my mindset, we should be, when we had been picking up points, is then a little bit of confidence. You start playing a little bit more with a freedom and you start winning games, and you should be looking up rather than, we've lost a game, let's go back to shutting up shop and we're trying to drain the game out and maybe nick it on a set piece, or if we get a penalty, all well and good. That's, for me, how sad it's been. And again, it doesn't help when your coach comes out and said, well, my brief is just to keep you in the Premier League. We are not West Bromwich Albion, with all due respect. We are not Sheffield United. It's Newcastle United Football Club that should be not challenging for winning the title. I'm not delusional to say, but we should be challenging higher up the league. As I said, we should be in that European spot. Then we can, like Sir Bobby did, we got into that European spot after being near the bottom of the league. We was never going to get relegated with the players of Shay Given and Gary Speed and Alan. We were never going to get relegated. We were just in a funk, in a bad situation with Ruud Gullit. Bobby turned it around. 2 years later, we're beating Inter Milan in the San Siro. That's how quick the game can change. And unfortunately, we seem to be in a rut at the moment where we're not utilising what we've got to its potential. And it is concerning. You're right, and it is concerning that we're looking over our shoulder. I just think there's the 3 or 4 teams that are probably worse off than us. Because I echo what I've said before. I don't think the players are poor players. I think it's how they've been set up. I think there's some good players there. I think there's some players that can win games for you, that can challenge. If they're let loose and a little bit more freedom, I think they can get on a roll and challenge and compete. That's all we want, is to compete. And if we get beat, we get beat. But the next game, we go and compete again and win the next one. And that's how our mindset should be. We should have gone to Sheffield United and said to them, they are petrified. Do not disappoint them. In the first 20, 25 minutes, we're going to win this game, get 2 or 3 goals, and then it's party time. We can enjoy ourselves. But it wasn't. It wasn't that at all. And it's a mindset that we go into the games. And as I said before, it is draining. I feel, I look on social media and fans. I've got lots of people that I still keep in contact in the Northeast, in Newcastle. It's like, come on, man, let's enjoy it. Let's win a game.
Do you think they're set up not to lose yesterday against Sheffield United? A lot of accusations that's what Steve Bruce's side looked like, what the team sheet looked like, that they're just set up to make sure they did not lose that game. And like you say, given how Sheffield United have been this season, surely you've got to go down to Bramall Lane and get 3 points and at least look like you're the better side, which never happened throughout the whole 90 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. For me, they was there for the taking. I would have made sure the day before on the board, it would have been, don't let us be the team that they get the 3 points. We ain't going to be that team. Whoever they got next week, I couldn't care less. Let them get the 3 points against them. It ain't going to be us. It's not going to be what happened with Sam Allardyce and Derby County. That ain't going to happen to this club and this squad of players. And emphasise that. And as I said, I'm not in that changing room. I wish I was, but I'm not. And it just seems that the mindset is we ain't getting beat. And I know people say, well, you do go into games and not want to get beat. I understand that. If you are going to Anfield, the first 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you say, right, let's keep it nice and tight. Let us get into the game and then we'll be okay. But you don't go to someone that hasn't won a game all season and say, go on, you have the ball, you do what you want. We're going to sit back here with 8 of us and my centre forward who can score goals and just defend and try and, get a goal on the counter-attack when we're 60 yards away from your goal.
How much responsibility do the players have to take? They're on the pitch. I mean, okay, they've been given whatever instructions, but do you think, towards the end of the game, we didn't really see anyone shouting, organising, just trying to grab the game by the scruff of the neck? How important are the players in this situation in terms of taking responsibility?
Again, I'll go back to my experience, with Ruud Gullit. It was a little bit, let's just keep the ball. I don't want it to leave too many gaps. Just retain the ball. We'll pass it and move, and we'll wait for that opportunity. That wasn't our way. It wasn't Gary Speed's way. It wasn't my way. It wasn't Alan's way. It wasn't Duncan Ferguson's way. Our way is to play on the front foot and play aggressive foot. We was used to winning games, and we wanted to go out there and try and win games. And the players, again, there's enough experience in that room. I'm sure when they're sitting down in the canteen having a sandwich, having a coffee or whatever they're doing after training, saying, we've got to do better. And they have, they've come out and said, we take responsibility, and that's theirs. But when you are told as a coach, as a player by your coach, listen, we need to do this, we need to, and you can tell that they're being restricted. Because Yedlin is a player that wants to get forward. I've seen him at Seattle. I've seen him throughout his career. He wants to get forward. He can't, with all due respect, defend as well as he should do, but he wants to get forward and express himself. So you're nullifying what he wants to do, and you're putting him in a situation where he's not always the most comfortable at doing it. And that's not down to Yedlin, and I could pick other players as well. When Meggy, who wants to go out and go forward, Almiron, he wants to express himself. But if you're getting him 50, 60 yards in his own half, how on earth is he going to get up to the opposition penalty box and create a chance for Wilson? He's got 8 players to get past and 70 yards. It's just, when you look at it in a cold light of day, you're thinking, really? Is that really happening? Because when we sit here and talk about it, as we all do, and analyse it, and we all, have our own opinions, is that we'll come up with the same thing. Why is that happening? Why is it when we've got players that can hurt other teams that we're keeping them far away from their goal? It is laughable in the end. You're either there or you're going to start crying, one or the other. And that's just, as I said, it's just my mindset. And I was lucky enough to be around coaches, and I was like a sponge. I take their ideas, whether it was Terry Venables with England in Euro 96, or, as I said, Kevin or Bobby or Kenny Dalglish, whoever it was. You take bits out of them and you absorb it. And as a player, you understand there's a fundamental way of playing, but also there's players. Wilson is a player that wants to express himself and go forward. So sooner or later, he's going to have to say, you know what, Gaffer, you might want me to do this, but I've got to get out there and score goals. I'm not enjoying it.
We've got 2 excellent goalkeepers at Newcastle United. We saw Dubravka back against Arsenal, and he kept Newcastle in the game. And then we've seen Cardallo all season just keep Newcastle in games, keep the score, low. And again, Sheffield United, he had to pull off 3 or 4 really good saves. Even there was a couple even before the sending off to Ryan Fraser. It's not good though, is it, when consistently your goalkeeper is man of the match, and more often than not, you've actually not picked up all 3 points.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge concern, and 2 excellent goalkeepers, 2 very good professionals. I was lucky with whether it was Pavel and Xhaka at the beginning, and then Shay Given and Steve Harper as well. You need 2 good goalkeepers. But yeah, it's a concern when, your best players is normally your goalkeeper. That's not a recipe for success. Yes, you want them to make saves, and both of them have come in and done well. You know, one that's had the injury, and Darlow's been excellent. I love his attitude. I love his desire. He epitomises what we want at the club. And I think he's doing very well. He's got a good confidence about himself. He's got a personality. And to play for Newcastle, you need that. And he's shown his mettle, and he's shown that he's good enough to do it. And we're going to need it. But it's again going back to what I've said before. Your best player should be. I mean, our best player was our number 9 or number 14, Gianolo, or it wasn't number 1 or number 2. Certain games they keep you in it and was outstanding. But majority player of the season, you do want to have your offensive players being player of the year, because that shows that you've gone out and been successful in the final third and won the majority of games. But both of them have been good, and you're right. Thank God we have got them, because if we hadn't, we could be in a relegation situation already.
Dread to think where we would be. I'm going to pop this comment on the screen here from Will Gallagher, and there's been a few like it. For those listening on the podcast later, I'll just read it out. He says, I used to love watching Newcastle go to the matches, and now I'm not bothered. I don't even look forward to it when we play. It's horrible to watch. How do you feel, Warren, when you read fans like Will, putting that point across, that they just don't enjoy watching their side anymore?
I feel sad, because I know what that club means to the people up there. They work hard Monday to Friday to go to that football club, and they'd do anything for it. They'd die for that club. And it may sound a bit stark, but that's the truth. And with all the Geordies I know, that's what it means to them. And then for someone to say, that's not the only one. Well, we've heard lots of people say that I had season tickets. My dad had season tickets. He used to, 10,000 waiting list, and he finally got his ticket. They want to give it away. They don't want to go. And how sad is that? Because we're supposed to be in that city, people that want to come and watch us and entertain them people for 90 minutes. So when they go in the pub, or they go home, or they go out for dinner with the family, they can say, well, I enjoyed that. We had a good laugh. Okay, we won or lost. But it's sad when you have people that think so much of the club that don't want to go and don't get interest. And that tells you something about what's been going on. But I want to emphasise it could change. I'm optimistic with things. I look at clubs. I look how things can turn around quickly. And I know if that club was going in the right direction, then people would be at the stadium. They would be queuing up. They would be wearing their shirts. They would be singing the songs. But at the moment, they've got nothing to sing about or nothing to get up about. And that's, as I said, that's sad because it means so much for everybody in that city.
What do you think Steve Bruce is trying to do at Newcastle? We've heard about this, him saying it's a work in progress. It's now 18 months on. Arguably, there is no work in progress. We've seen several different formations, and obviously then we've seen them lose to Sheffield United. What do you think Steve Bruce is trying to do, and does that work in progress? Admittedly, he hasn't said it in a couple of weeks, but is that a fair comment from Steve Bruce? Is he still allowed to say this is a work in progress?
He's allowed to because he's the manager of the club at the moment, and he's got his own opinion. Do I agree with it? No. A work in progress, you're going to see stages of improvement. And we've just said there, it's very similar to what we see after a month of being in charge. So there's not been a progression. A work in progress, you maybe see like a group of younger players coming in, or we're changing a formation and a start. Are we going to press high up the field? We're not a counter. Can I just say as well, we are not a team that counter-attack because we haven't got enough pace and we ain't got enough. We're too far away from someone's goal to have counter-attacking. We can't counter-attack in our own 18-yard box. We haven't got that personnel to do it. But what we have got is athletes and players that can compete and can go back into it. So this work in progress is not really rubbing on me. And again, that's not a detriment. I've been in the game long enough. I've done my A license, pro license, whatever it is. So I understand all the jargon that goes with it and how you have to handle the media and everything like that. But a work in progress, you're seeing through time a progression. I think we can all clearly say we're not seeing a progression because we're getting beat by a team that haven't won a game all season and could have actually beaten by more. We hide behind a VAR decision. It could have been, if it wasn't for the goalkeeper, 2 or 3-0. And then we are really panicking because the scoreline is like 3-0. So this work in progress. And as I said, you can say what you like, but results and performances, and you can be a tactician as well and look at stats. Like I look at the modern game has changed. You look at every stat. The last 6 games out of our 17, 18 games, we haven't had a shot in the first half. We have not had a shot in the first half. That's a stat. There's other stats where we're -9 goal differential in our league. So there's some stats as well as just looking at it with your eyeballs and thinking, you know what? This is not really working for me. This work in progress is not really happening. And that's the cold truth, really, I think. And what I said, yesterday and this morning is the truth. I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm not trying to be clever. I care. I care about a club that gave me so much. And as I said, when I used to walk into the training ground or walk out at St James's Park, I'd treat it like it was my last day because it was the best time of my life. And that's what it means to me. And I'm from London. Me and Les were born and bred in London, and Rob Lee was born in London. But we knew exactly what them fans, because of what Kevin Keegan, Sir Bobby, Lee Clark, Peter Beard told us. We didn't need to write it down. We knew, and it hasn't changed. Can I just say the same mindset has not changed from when we played till now. You've got it, and Rafa said it a little while ago. It's not just the fact of playing for a club. You're playing for a special club. You're representing a special football club, and you should endear that. You should enjoy it because these people, this club don't come around too often. And it ain't another club. It ain't just a normal football club. Like when Rude said, it's just, well, it's a regional game. It ain't. It's them and us. That's what it means. Sunderland and that's what it means. And unfortunately, some people get it, some people don't. And when you think of a Geordie not getting it, then it is a concern because every Geordie I know gets it.
You mentioned there Ruud Gullit, and obviously he went on a bad run of form, and it was slightly different to what's going on now. But the results weren't there. When you're in a dressing room as a player and the results aren't happening, but the man just fighting on, what is that like? I mean, what do you think will be going on now inside the Newcastle United dressing room today? Will players be pointing out that they don't think this is right, that is wrong? We know there was a conversation at last month where kind of everything was laid out, and then I think a tactic change came along. Is that the sort of thing you expect to be happening, especially now after they've been beaten by the bottom side in the Premier League?
I would hope so. Again, going back to Ruud and our time, a little bit different than Steve Bruce at the moment. Ruud's was personal. Ruud was telling people like Rob Lee, Stuart Pearce, Nikos Dabizas that he didn't want them in the club and keep away. I mean, these are top professionals, good people, and you can see that the careers that they've had. Then he went after Alan Shearer and made it personal with him. Steve's is a little bit different. Steve's is the tactics and the mindset. I can't see too many people falling out with Steve. I don't think the players would be is frustrated. I remember sitting down with Steve Howie and Gary Speed with Ruud, and it was like, we need to do something. And then we'd say to Ruud, and it was like, well, no, this is what we're doing, and Alan's not playing, they're getting the derby, and this is happening, and so you do voice your opinion, but ultimately they are the coach. And your players are resilient and they go out. But I would think now Steve and his staff are sitting down and thinking, what do we need? I would hope. I mean, as I said with Steve, I played against him. He was a marvellous captain for Man United, a top professional. Whenever I've come across him, he's been a great guy. I don't think I'll be on his Christmas list, but it's not personal. This is not a personal thing on Steve at all. It's just about a club that I care about. And the situation with Ruud Gullit, he didn't really care. Ruud never lived in the area. He rented a place and then left, and I don't think he's ever been back since. Not that he's probably welcome too much, but he's not been back since. But that was more of a personal thing, rather than what Steve's happening at the moment is a tactical thing and a mindset of how we're going into games. So I think it is slightly different, but I understand players should be asking questions. Steve should be sitting around with his coaching staff, sitting around as players. You'd expect your senior players or even young players to come out and have an opinion and say, what do we need to do? Let's get on the same page. And as I said, I'm not naive enough, but it can change quickly. It can look what happened with Arsenal. They get a penalty, a free kick and a fluky goal. Now they're on the run against Chelsea. And now their mindset's changed. I'm not saying it's going to happen with that at the moment. Maybe the fans not being in the stadium could help some of these players and the manager as well, because the frustration that I'm hearing is hard for everybody to take, and it would be hard for players to deal with that in that stadium. But it can change quickly, and I'm sure we've got the personnel, but it is a mindset, it is a belief, it is as I said, someone needs to grab that group of players and club around the scruff of the neck and saying, this is what we are, and we ain't going away from it. We're not diverting from where we want to be. We're not going to be a team that lets the opposition dictate when they're bottom of the league, home or away. I couldn't care less. That's what we've got to do. We're not naive enough to go toe to toe with Man City, but we're trying to exploit his weaknesses and what he wants to try and do and how they play. But we don't see that. We don't see it.
Looking at the game last night, do you think the players are still fighting for Steve Bruce? A few questions on your opinion of maybe he's lost the dressing room. We've seen the likes of Gabby Bronghorn on TalkSport say that they didn't look like they were fighting for Steve Bruce. What's your view on that? Because I mean, the players, a lot of players have come out, not recently, but when he first got the job, to say brilliant manager, brilliant guy, and he is a lovely character, But do you think they're fighting for him on the pitch?
Looking at that performance yesterday, I'd have to say no. I hope not. I hope the player. I think let me go back and think how I would be with Ruud. I went out there to go and play, but there was such a negative vibe around what was going on. I couldn't express myself. I couldn't go out and then, as much as experienced I wanted to go out there and play. There was that doubt when Bobby come in, and when you have a coach, there was no doubt. It was like it was like treading water. You're just trying to keep going, and that's what the players are doing. I'm sure as professionals, they want to go out when they're warming up. There's a positive vibe. They're getting ready, but they know when they're going out that the reins are on. As soon as they get it, Wilson, drop back, get on the edge of the centre circle, and let them have a ball. He knows it, and it's been coming and coming, and I'd like to think there's still a fight in these group of players, and I'm sure it would do, and I'm sure there's a fight in Steve, but it doesn't look like it from the outside. As I said, I don't see him. I'm not saying throw things out. I don't see him getting excited. I don't see him getting angry. I don't see him getting frustrated. I just don't see any emotion from a man that was a top class leader and captain, and that would lead men. He led people like Cantona, Brian Robson, and Mark Hughes. He led men into winning championships. These lot of players need a leader. They need someone to lead them, and at the moment they're not being led the right way.
It doesn't appear so. I mean, when you look at it, you mentioned there, sitting back and the way they're set up. And to many people, it's a defeatist approach. I think what I would like to see is Newcastle if Newcastle draw with a side, you don't want to be talking about how good your goalkeeper was. You want to be saying, oh, well, we could have nicked it there at the end, or we had a chance, it was a great save from that Carroll header, or what have you. But recently, it is a case that Newcastle have been lucky not to lose by 2 or 3 goals. Does that frustrate you as someone who cares so much about the club, that Newcastle at times just appear to be set up not to lose rather than to threaten other sides?
Oh yeah, I mean, as I said, you go into the games knowing that you're hanging on, and that seems to be the brief at the moment for it, is that let's just hang. I mean, as I said, it come out when he said it, Steve, about we've had different quotes from different managers. So Bobby Robson, it's not about the players, it's about the city. Kevin Keegan, I want to give these fans what they deserve. Rafa Benitez, it's no one's bigger than the club. And then you've got someone that comes out and says, we're just happy to survive. My brief is to keep us in the Premier League. I mean, where does that inspire you? And also for Steve's brief, if Mike Ashley said to me, Warren, your brief is just to keep us in the Premier League, I say, I'm not going to keep you in the Premier League. I'm going to make this challenge. That's what my brief would be. That's how I see it. I don't see as, okay, Mike, I'm going to make sure we finish, 15th. That's good. No, I want us to, I'm going to show you we're better than that. We're better than surviving. We're more as collective as a group of players and tactically aware and sound as a team with 2 excellent goalkeepers. We're going to do better than survive. We're going to surprise people. We're going to challenge people. We're going to dictate games. We're going to win games. But as I said, it's a difficult situation at the moment because of how everything seems around the club and how people are. We had Terry McDermott next to Kevin Keegan, 2 really big characters and funny people and wonderful people. I don't see anyone on the backroom staff getting them involved with the players and helping them. And I'm not hearing that from in the club as well. Everyone just comes in, does their job, goes in, and there's no qualms, there's no voices, there's no noise. There's just, okay, let's go in. We lost. We're trying to win the next one, and that's not good enough.
You mentioned there Mike Ashley, and obviously he's got his own hopes, his own ambitions, and he's sidetracked by this, arbitration with the Premier League and the takeover. He thought that he wouldn't be here by now owning Newcastle United, and unfortunately he is. Is Steve Bruce just collateral to Mike Ashley's vision for Newcastle United? Would that be a fair point that maybe Steve Bruce is just operating within what he's been told to do? Is that a sort of defence you can apply to what you're seeing, or has it been so bad that doesn't really wash?
No, I think if that was me or a lot of people as well, if that's your brief, I'd have a bit more about me than just say, okay, that's my brief and that's what I do. As I said to you before, it's surprising with Steve Bruce that if he is being given that at the beginning of the season, this is what he accepts it. I would like to think there's enough about him. And again, I echo what Steven Gerrard has done at Glasgow Rangers. Steven didn't just say, I'm going to go in there and get the club competing with Celtic. They've overtook them. they're what, 17 points clear, 16 points clear. You know, there's a certain. If we was West Brom or Brighton or a Sheffield United, that have, you know, a club like that, if you brief, is just the first couple of years in the Premier League, like Bournemouth did, they're staying there. I get that, but we're not. We're not that club. We surely shouldn't be that club. If we have, then we're a million miles away from where we should be and where we want to be. And I don't accept that. I don't accept that we are a club that are just plodding along. Not for me. Newcastle United is not that club.
So what has to happen now, in your opinion? Does Steve Bruce get a few more games to turn this around? Do you think he has to go now? What would you like to see happen at Newcastle?
As I said to you, I'd like to see it, and I would never, ever, and I believe in karma, say someone should get the sack. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's the right thing to do. I don't think Steve should have people say he's deserved to go. Fans, by all means, but people that have been in the game, like you've said, he's a decent guy, he's a good guy. So I would never go, he deserves to be sacked. But what doesn't deserve to happen, that something needs to change. The mindset, the attitude, the belief, the togetherness has to change in that football club. Otherwise, we are going to get dragged into that relegation battle. So whether Steve changes his personality or changes his vibe, or Mike Astley does whatever Mike Astley does, or the players, or a new face comes in, but something needs to change. You know, it can't get any lower than this. You can't get any lower that you lose. You got knocked out of 2 cup competitions. One of them was in the Championship. So you've got knocked out of 2 cup competitions. You've got a team that haven't won a game all season that dominate you and beat you 1-0. So it can't get any lower. So it's about rolling your sleeves up, getting down the training field, working out some systems, working out the personnel, and finding a way to win games and finding a way to get some life into this club, which it deserves. The club deserve it. The fans deserve it. But Newcastle, everything that people have done in the past, whether it's Bobby, War Jackie, whoever it's been, they deserve better than this, than what we're seeing. And that's for me is what you have to understand, what the DNA of Newcastle is.
What would be your message to Mike Ashley? I wrote this morning that if he does stick with Steve Bruce, then he needs to back him in the transfer market and get that midfielder in, because I feel their midfield is where they're lacking. It's often bypassed. They haven't got that box-to-box midfielder. And simply keeping him in the job isn't good enough. He's going to have to do something to prove that he does believe in him and to improve the team. What would you say to Mike Ashley if you could pick up the phone and say, look, this needs to happen at Newcastle?
I would be, when Mike took over, I think he had the wrong, well, not think, I know, he had the wrong people around him that gave him bad advice. What he should have done, in my opinion, is speak to people that have been in that club and get to know people and understand of what it means to play for the club. And to echo again, if he really believes in what he was doing when he bought this club, of what it can potentially be, is enjoy it. Enjoy being at this club. You know, it takes money. Yes, we understand that. And he's been given some money. Let's not hide behind the facts of when, you know, Graham was there, or Sam Allardyce, all these coaches, Pardew, they all had money to spend. You know, he has had money. This group of players as well. I understand we want to bring other players in, but I echo what I said earlier on. You know, there are some really good players in this team. There's some good players, but it's a mindset of what we're doing. Believe with Mike Ashley, this club is a special club. It ain't a business. It ain't a corner shop. It affects too many people to be like that. Now, if that's not on your agenda, then do what you're trying to do, is sell the club. But Mike, if you want to get something special and you want to enjoy something, there's no better place than Newcastle to do it. There is no better place. So it's one or the other. You can't do it half measure with this club. It means too much. You can't just get by and just survive. You're either all in or you're out. It's one or the other. And if you're in, you're going to have the time of your life, because for me, you ask anybody when they played for that club, you know, Les only did it for 2 years, but he said it's the best time of his life that he ever had. And that's no disrespect to the other clubs, or David Ginola, or you ask Rob Lee, any of us, Shay Given, whoever you want to ask, it's the best time you ever had. Speedo used to say it to me, as much as he loved Leeds and Everton, what a club this is. What a place to play. And, you know, it gets me going now. It gets the hairs on my arms getting up and getting excited, because I know what it could be. We had it. We nearly had it. And unfortunately, we couldn't get over the finishing line. There's not a day goes past that doesn't sit in my mind or in my stomach about that. But I know what we did at that time, and we did some good things. You know, as I said, beating the likes of Barcelona and beating Man United 5-0. All right, we didn't win anything, but we had a bloody good go, and people remember that. And that's what I would say to Mike. And I don't think anyone's ever told him like that. And he may turn around and say, you know what, Warren, I don't want that. I want a business that. My advice to him would get rid of it then, sell it to someone.
Well, the last time.
Sorry.
I was going to say the last time we spoke on the podcast, we were talking about this potential takeover. We're talking about Pochettino potentially coming in, and I mean, as a fan, it's just so draining to be in this position where all those hopes you had. What was it? Probably I think it was last July. I'm going to take a guess. The last time we spoke on the podcast, and people were excited, and obviously it's now. You know, there's legal arbitration and all that, but it's just the turnaround's been quite something, and it's been draining for Newcastle United fans, hasn't it?
And the reason it is because we all know how close we are. We all can sense it, and like you said, if it was a new owner and a Pochettino, this club doesn't need like restructuring or I mean, it has the fan base, it has the identity, it has everything going for it. But that's why it's so frustrating. If you're thinking, well, it's a club that needs to rebuild, regroup, refocus, it doesn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Because I know that if someone walked in and changed it around like that, that place would be rocking. It would be a nightmare for the opposition to come and play against them. You would make it that. You would make it intimidating. You would make it that the players, don't want to come up there. The noise, the atmosphere, people walking into the stadium would be there 2 hours before, not giving their tickets away because they don't want to be there on a Saturday. They'd be in the pub across the road and getting ready to rock and roll before a game. That's what it is. That's what Newcastle is. It's not a normal place. It's not. It's a special place, and people need to realise that. And you get these so-called pundits, and they say about this and about that, and they just don't get it. How can someone be doing a good job, but we feel the opposition's going to beat you? I mean, there's no logic there. It doesn't. Like when someone said, "Well, what do they want?" They want a club to be ambitious. What do you think they want? It's not rocket science. They want a team that go out that competes, not to sit there, drain the living daylights out of you, and then get out and kick the dog or something, and then get more upset about that. And I'm not saying people kick a dog. I don't want people having a go at me for that, but you understand what I'm saying. It's so frustrating.
Well, we had a few questions there about the pundits, and I think you've answered that spot on, because that is one of the frustrations. You've got people who sound like they don't even watch Newcastle United for a full 90 minutes.
It's mind blowing. I had someone over here say, they think the stick on Steve is unfair. What do you mean unfair? Of course, he's getting criticism because his team are losing and they're playing poorly and they're playing negative football. Of course, he's going to get criticism. How is that unfair? That's what the job entails. That's what, when you're a manager of a football club, you're in charge of a performing, you're in entertaining. So how is it unfair, or the fans are disillusioned? And they're not. They're the best fans in the world. They understand it. What they don't understand is a team going out and a group of players and a coach that are not looking to win a game against a team that's never won a game this season. That's what's mind-blowing.
Summed it up perfectly. We've got a few people asking, because I think there was a tweet put out earlier asking if you would take the job. And we've got a few people asking, would you take the job, Warren?
Of course I would. Yeah. Listen, as I said, I'm qualified. I'd love to. I paid my own flight to get back. Of course I would. That goes without saying. Now, whether that's going to ever happen, I don't know. But I'm qualified in the coaching terms and stuff like that. But as I said, of course I would do. I'd love to be involved with the club. It's a great club. I think people know how much it's a big part of my life, with my kids being born and everything else in the area and living up there and everything else. So yeah, that goes without saying, and I would love to. And whether that ever happens, and can I just say for the record, it would be a dream come true. No, I'm not sure. It would be special, and I'd love every minute of it, like I did the 7, 8 years I was there. And that's what it should be. It should be a dream for someone. Like when Bobby come back, he said, "Like, I'm fulfilled now." I mean, how does that make you feel? So Bobby Robson, of what he's done, he said, when I come back in, and he said that I was fulfilled. I'm done now. I've done it. This is where I want to be. And what they did to him at the end was out of order as well. So I'll bring that up.
Yeah. I think Sir John Hall, when I spoke to him last year, said something similar about the way that ended.
He was nuts. Can I just say so as well? So John Hall was brilliant for me and Les. When we first went up there, not necessarily Lee Clark and Peter, and I said that, but I always remember Sir John sat me down and spoke about what the club is and about what his vision was. And it was fantastic. The best hour of my life. Him and a couple of other people, Sir Bobby and Sir Alex, when I've sat with them, will always be with for the rest of my life. When he sat down and Sir John and how he spoke about the area, the club, I didn't know. I'd been up there, played games, and he didn't disappoint me. It didn't disappoint because he knows and he gets it.
He's got such passion even now for the club. I was going to ask you that when you first arrived, did you think all these years later you'd be talking about Newcastle United with such passion, with such love, from that moment you signed up until today? Because it's clearly, still it's embedded within you now.
I think at the time, people would know there was other clubs, whether it was Arsenal, Man City, Everton, but when Kevin come to me and said, "Come and join a big club," and Barry Venison as well was great. I was with Barry with England, and he sat down and he said, "You're going to love it." And again, them words will always. I remember like it was yesterday. And just a quick story. I think I told you before. When I was playing for Wimbledon in February, I was doing a cool down on the field afterwards, and the stadium was empty. And I was thinking with another one of the players I was doing a warm down with, imagine playing for this lot. How great it would be. And then 4 months later, I was doing it. But when Kevin Keegan said to me, "Come and join a special club, come and join a big club," I got it straight away. And everything, I was told twice I was too small. I played non-league football. So when I got the chance to play for Newcastle, I wasn't going to give that up, even in some difficult times. People remember it wasn't always easy for me there. I had to win over the fans and maybe not won over all of them, but I understood what I was playing for, and that's why I could have walked away on a Bosman and walked out there, but I signed another contract as well. So it's a special place. It's a great club, and I know everybody feels the same about their football club, but Newcastle is different. As I said, when you get on that train and you're coming into Newcastle, the first thing you see is the stadium. You don't see a monument or a castle or anything else. You see the football stadium, and that's what, for me, Newcastle is all about.
100%. I think everyone can definitely relate to that. We'll just finish with a couple of questions then from our viewers. We've got Dustin Miller here asking if you think Alan St. Maximin being out has made the difference. I guess he means negatively in terms of the recent run of form and results. Obviously, St. Maximin, for those listening, watching, he's dealing with the impact of COVID, long COVID. Hopefully, be back sooner rather than later, and we wish him well. Do you think him being out of the side has made a negative impact on Newcastle?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a big personality. He's a key player. He did sign his big contract, and he sort of, as Alan said, went off the ball a little bit. He's probably buying a bit of his Gucci stuff to fill up his wardrobe. But now that's all full up, he can go out and play. But yeah, just hopefully with the COVID situation that he's better. But he's going to be a big loss. He's a big personality. He's an exciting player. He's a type of players that Newcastle should be attracting and should be playing. And sooner he's back, the better, if he's allowed to flourish and go forward and entertain and take people on, because he's got natural gifting and ability, and he's a joy to watch. And there's not too many players that do it. He does get you on the edge of your seat because you're not sure what's going to happen. I'm not sure whether he knows, but you're not sure what he's going to do with the ball. But normally, it's a pretty good thing.
Definitely. And we've got Chris McQuillan here asking, how would you play and set up the team then if it was down to you and you had your choice to send the players out? What would you do?
I would, whether it would be 4 at the back. We used to, again, maybe one holder midfield player, two number 8s that want to get forward. My wide players would be close to my number 9. But sometimes I would change it around and have maybe 2 midfield players and play with someone just behind my striker. So, yeah, no, I'm flexible. I'm not a coach that just says, right, we're going to go 4-4-2 or 4-3-3. I think players should be allowed to express themselves, obviously against who you're playing as well. If they've got weaknesses where their fullbacks like pushing up, I keep 2 wide players up against them. One thing I would do, I'd be on the front foot. I would want to win games. I make sure that we play with high energy. We would press around the field. But I would be, a coach that, and I've done that over here, in the States. I've done different systems to weigh things, and also in the game, with some people maybe don't realise, someone's on fire at that time and really doing well, then you have to adjust to what they're doing. If Almiron's on fire at the moment, get him in that number 10 position, get him on the ball, get 2 wide players, and he can then serve it up to your striker. So you've got to be a bit more flexible, and obviously have new ideas and take chances. Take the opportunity and obviously go forward. And as I said, the number 1 position looks pretty good, and there's some good players there. And I'm sure with a little bit of guidance and enthusiasm, which is an important part of the game, we can do well.
Well, that was going to be one of the next questions you've mentioned there. The team has some talented players. Sean Lane asks, do we have enough talent to stay up even with Steve Bruce in charge? I mean, Callum Wilson gets the goals, and you would argue, yes, they've got a big enough cushion, I guess, as well, to not immediately fear a relegation battle. But if they keep performing this way, then it probably is going to sneak up on them.
But it's sad that we're talking about that. As I said, when the new players come in and we went down to London and beat West Ham, you're thinking, you know what, if these group of players can play the style of football they're seeing, there's no reason why we can't, maybe get into Europa League. And that's what my brief would have been at the beginning of the season. Are we in the top 4? You never know, but let's go for Europa football. And with them players that we brought in, Lewis at the back and Wilson up front and Frey, there was some spark, there was some life. But it just got drained out of us. It got drained out of the players. I think it got drained out of the fans. And as I said, now we're seeing the effect. But it's sad that we're talking about that the squad is possibly strong enough just to stay up. And I'm sure they are. I'm sure. But don't take it for granted. Really don't, because it's a dangerous game if you do that.
And we're going to finish on a happy memory. First of all, I just want to know the story behind this picture. For those listening later on the podcast, we have it looks like a fashion show. We have Warren in a black shirt and white trousers, and Les Ferdinand wearing what looks like a chain jacket. You can see a lot of torso there. Can you just explain to our listeners and viewers what's going on there?
Yeah, it was all part of when me, Les, Shaka, and David Ginola. There's no surprise that Shaka and David and Les took their shirts off as well, because as you said, with their physiques, they was walking down the runway. But we was asked by the club that was doing a line in clothing, as well as the old granddad collar shirts, the away shirt and the home shirt. So it was a fashion shoot. But you've never seen 4 more awkward people walking down the road. Actually, David was in his element. Actually, let's go back. David Ginola was in his element with his Cerruti modelling career. But me, Les and Shaka, we was like wooden cardboard cutouts walking up and down. But we was asked by the club to do a bit of a fashion show. And as you see, the fashion wasn't high end at that time, but it was wearable. But it was all part of the Adidas going with the club, the granddad collars, the stuff that the fans could wear. And going forward, so yeah, it was. You'll be safe to say I haven't still got that shirt. I got rid of it, but it was all Newcastle. It had the badge on it, the emblem, the years, and everything else on it. But yeah, it was a bit of fun. We got a bit of stick from it as well from the boys. But yeah, that was the end of my modelling career. It lasted about 90 minutes.
And I guess that when things are going well, you're happy to do that sort of thing, and the mood's good. I mean, you in the first few years, especially, you really were quite close. You're obviously battling for the title. You would be going out to restaurants to have dinner and all that. I mean, what was it like? What was the dressing room like under Kevin Keegan, then later, obviously, Sir Bobby?
It was magnificent. Again, we'd come in 4 new players had come to a team that was obviously been successful, and then 4 new faces had come in, and everybody was welcome. I think, Kevin Keegan knew how I was as a person. So I was like the chauffeur to Les and David and Shaka to make sure that they got to events and was around. And, older players made us feel so welcome, whether it was Lee Clark, Steve Watson, the boys would go out for something to eat. And I kept that going. We kept, that was part of my role as well, being like vice captain and captain with Rob Lee and Alan, is that we would do that. Like when Alan first come in, we kept going. So the team spirit was good. And when Noberto Solano, Shay Given, Gary Speed, it was like a little tradition, if you like, with, Kieran Dyer, Craig Bellamy, Laurent Ribert, people like that. Aaron Hughes was coming through, the younger players as well. So it is, again, with Newcastle, because it is just a city that has one football club in there, you have a big responsibility. And even when the times was tough for myself or the team wasn't winning, we'd still go to presentations, we'd still go to Wallsend Boys Club, or we're going to the RBI at Freeman Hospital, and go and see the kids in the ward, or we go asked to do a presentation for someone, or have a picture outside. And I remember, so Bobby Robson, when we'd go down to games, and Kevin Keegan, at Selhurst Park, which is the worst stadium to get out of, we'd be there an hour, and they'd both be talking to fans, stewards, people. So it was a responsibility. So, and part of doing a fashion show, and part of season ticket holders, or going up to the Platinum Club, it was all part of it. And after a game, it wasn't just one or two of us that would go over to the fans. It was made sure that all of us would go over there, win or lose, and you have to take the rough with the smooth. And as I said, people sort of, I think, respected that in the end, because we didn't hide. If we was out, I remember being with my wife in a Chinese restaurant, and two or three guys was in a work do, and they were sitting at the table for 45 minutes talking to us about the game and what went wrong. So that's part of representing the club, and it was never an issue. And as I said, that's what the fans, they want to be part of it. They want to be a gap between the fans and the players. It shouldn't be like that.
Obviously you were in the States. Do you miss that? I mean, if you came back to live in the UK, do you think you might end up settling in Newcastle and get that feeling again, where you are walking down the street with your milk, but you'll bump into 4 or 5 fans wanting a photograph?
Yeah, I mean, every time we go out there, I mean, it's when I've been back, and my son went on a football tour with his local team here, and it was no coincidence. One of the places we went, which was St James's Park. So yeah, and whenever we go back, I'd speak to people. As I said, I've got a lot of good friends still up there. It's a great part of the world. So yeah, when I am back, obviously with the pandemic, it's not been able to do that. But when we've had the opportunity, we go back. And I know Alan's there, and obviously Steve Harper and people like that. So I'm sure they can put me in their spare bedroom while I'm doing a bit of coaching or something. And
just finally, then, what is your most memorable game at Newcastle? What is the one game that you tell everyone about?
I think I told you this, but all of them, I loved it all. But there's no doubt the Barcelona Champions League game, the 5-0 against Manchester United, which is special. The game that maybe a lot of fans won't remember, we beat Nottingham Forest 5-0, which qualified us to get into the Champions League. And actually, Sunderland and Middlesbrough, they got relegated. So that was a pretty special time. But it's like anything, your first. I remember the first game at home against Coventry, where we won 3-0 and Les scored, and the place was ballistic. And it seemed like everybody was wearing a black and white shirt. Me and Les was warming up beforehand. So, I was lucky. 220 games I had for the club. They was all special in my mind, but definitely the first one. And as I said, the other one, the FA Cup semi-finals was great as well at Old Trafford. Winning them, seeing the fans, seeing the excitement in their eyes and their face. That's what the club is all about for me. Old Trafford may argue and United fans, but I remember my wife being in the stadium. She thought it was going to fall down because they was going crazy in the stadium, and that's what supporting Newcastle for me is all about. And that's how the fans should feel every time we go out and play, which unfortunately at the moment is not happening.
Can you then just give, as the final question to you, just give our listeners and our viewers and the Newcastle United fans some hope going into this? What is a tough year at the moment. We're only 13 days in, but can you give us some hope as a Newcastle United fan?
There's about 3 teams that are worse than us, but no, I think, as I said, I think the players we've got are good enough to do well in this league if it's a mindset and a change. So not to the fans, because they know what they want. To the players would be go out there and play aggressive, pressing on the front foot football, and take the game to other teams. Don't sit back. We're not good enough to sit back. Let's go and challenge them, and look like you enjoy playing for that club. Look like it, and I'm not saying they don't, but look like they enjoy being around that football club, coming into training, going to St James's Park, wearing that shirt. Enjoy it, because there ain't other clubs like it. I'm telling you, there's not other clubs like it. So, the fans don't need it. They know that's what they're desperate for. They want people to understand it inside that change room, inside that stadium. And if you don't know it, you shouldn't be there.
Simple as that. Well, Warren, we do appreciate you taking the time. To everyone listening and watching, please remember to like and subscribe from whatever platform you're doing that on, and enjoy the rest of your evening.